So, it finally happened. Not a small crack. Not a polite reveal. Not a carefully measured confession. It exploded. The version of you they were comfortable with, the edited, filtered easy to digest version, didn't gently fade away. It shattered in front of them. No warning. No soft landing. Just truth hitting the floor like glass. And now, they're frozen. You can see it in their faces. That stiff silence. That half-open mouth. That blink that lasts a little too long. Their brains are racing, trying to piece together what just happened. Trying to reconcile the image they built of you with the presence standing in front of them now. Because this wasn't supposed to happen. You weren't supposed to drop the act. You weren't supposed to stop playing the role. You weren't supposed to exist without the filter that made them feel safe. For years you carried that costume like armor. The calm one. The agreeable one. The quiet one. The "it's fine, don't worry about it" one. You let them believe your silence meant weakness. You let them think your patience meant you had no edge. You let them assume your kindness was cluelessness. And they got comfortable. They labeled you, categorized you, minimized you, safe, predictable, manageable, but something inside you got tired. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was disrespect. Maybe it was the moment someone crossed a line and expected you to smile through it. Or maybe, just maybe, you realized that shrinking was starting to feel like betrayal. Not betrayal of them. Betrayal of yourself. And in that one unfiltered moment, you stopped performing. The tone shifted. The energy changed. Your eyes didn't soften this time. They sharpened. And that's when they saw it. Not anger. Not chaos. Not cruelty. Power, controlled, grounded, awake power, the kind that doesn't beg, the kind that doesn't flinch, the kind that doesn't explain itself. And that scared them. Because the person they thought they understood, that was a surface version, a convenient outline, a simplified sketch that made them feel taller in comparison. But what they saw in that flash, that was depth, and depth unsettles shallow certainty. They realized something terrifying in that split second. You were never small. You were restrained. You were never clueless. You were observant. You were never weak. You were choosing peace over dominance. They mistook control for submission. They mistook awareness for passivity. They mistook mercy for incapability. And now the illusion is gone. Now every memory they have of you is glitching. That time you stayed silent in an argument. Was that fear? Or were you calculating? That time you walked away, was that surrender? Or strategy? That time you let them win, was that defeat? Or was it patience? They're replaying everything. Because the moment you revealed even 10% of what you actually are, it restructured their entire understanding of you. And here's what really unsettles them. If they got you this wrong, what else have they misunderstood? You weren't reacting impulsively. You were watching. You weren't lost. You were learning. While they were busy measuring you, testing you, subtly trying to see how far they could push, you were mapping them, studying patterns, noting insecurities, tracking habits, seeing through masks while keeping yours intact. You saw who needed to feel superior. You saw who relied on sarcasm to hide insecurity. You saw who mistook loudness for authority. And you said nothing, not because you didn't notice, but because you didn't need to prove anything. Smart people don't always speak first. They observe. They collect. They wait. And when they finally move, it's deliberate. That's what they felt. Deliberation. It wasn't a breakdown. It wasn't a bad day. It was a reveal. And reveals are irreversible. Now when they look at you, something has shifted. The lazy assumptions are gone. The careless tone disappeared. They measure their words now. They hesitate before jokes. They second-guess sarcasm. There's calculation in their delivery, because they're no longer certain how you'll respond. The predictable version of you is dead, and in its place stands someone they cannot easily categorize. Humans don't fear enemies they understand. They fear unpredictability. You have become a variable in their equation, and it's ruining their math. Some of them are scrambling to recalibrate, suddenly more polite, suddenly curious, suddenly respectful in ways they weren't before. That's not coincidence. That's awareness. They're realizing they might have underestimated someone who was operating on a completely different level the entire time. And here's the truth that keeps them uneasy. What they saw wasn't your full power. It was a glimpse, just a controlled spark. And if that spark was enough to shake them, what happens when you stop dimming entirely? This is where everything changes. Because now the mask isn't cracked. It's gone. And once you experience what it feels like to stand in your real energy, unaided, unfiltered, unapologetic, pretending becomes suffocating. They want the old version back, the easier one, the softer one, the manageable one. But that version required you to shrink, and you've tasted what expansion feels like now. There is no returning to small after remembering how big you actually are. This wasn't the end of something. It was the beginning, and they know it. That's why they're unsettled. Because the person standing in front of them now, that's not a character. That's the author. Ever since that moment, nothing has felt the same. You don't even have to say much anymore. You don't have to raise your voice. You don't have to prove anything. The shift already happened. Now watch them closely. Look at how they approach you. There's caution there. A subtle pause before they speak. A recalculation mid-sentence. They're not as careless as they used to be. Not as bold. Not as dismissive. Why? Because the script they had for you burned to ashes. They used to think they could predict you. They thought they knew your limits. They thought they understood what would trigger you, what would silence you, what would keep you in your place. But the moment you stepped out of character, the moment you stopped shrinking, you shattered their illusion of control. And control is everything to people who feel insecure underneath. Let's be honest about something deeper. They weren't comfortable because you were kind. They were comfortable because they believed you were harmless. There's a difference. Kindness with boundaries feels powerful. Kindness without boundaries feels controllable. And for a long time, they convinced themselves you were the second type. But when your energy shifted, when your voice didn't soften this time, when your eyes didn't look away, when your presence filled the room instead of shrinking, they realized something uncomfortable. You were never harmless. You were disciplined. You were never naive. You were strategic. You were never beneath them. You were choosing not to compete. That realization, it's rattling them. Now they're replaying old conversations in their heads. That meeting where you stayed quiet. Were you disengaged or were you analyzing? That time they made a slick comment and you just smiled. Did it go over your head? Or did you clock it and decide it wasn't worth your energy? That time they thought they won. An argument. Did you lose or did you let them think they did? Every memory is under review. Because the version of you they built their confidence on might not have been real at all. And here's the part they won't admit out loud. They feel exposed. Because if you were observing this whole time, if you were watching their habits, their ego patterns, their insecurity spikes, then that means you saw through them too. You saw the fake dominance. You saw the forced confidence. You saw the way they tried to elevate themselves by underestimating you. And you never reacted. That's what's haunting them. You didn't fight. You didn't defend. You didn't correct them. You let them think they were ahead. But now they're starting to wonder, were they ever? Because calm isn't always clueless, silence isn't always weakness, and patience, that's not submission. That's control. They mistook your restraint for limitation. Now they're realizing it was choice, and that changes everything. Have you noticed how some of them are suddenly warmer, more attentive, more careful? That's not random. That's damage control. The ones who overlooked you are now seeking your input. The ones who spoke over you are now asking for your opinion. The ones who underestimated you are now studying you. They're trying to recalibrate the dynamic. But here's the truth they're slowly understanding. You can't unsee someone's power once you've witnessed it. That glimpse they caught, that steady, grounded intensity rewired their perception. You've become unpredictable to them. And unpredictability is intimidating. Humans prefer patterns. They prefer familiarity. They prefer people who stay in the boxes they were assigned. But you stepped out of yours. And now you're a variable they don't know how to manage. Some of them are nervous. Some of them are impressed. Some of them are threatened. Because here's what really unsettles people. Not when someone becomes loud, but when someone becomes clear. Clarity is sharp. Clarity doesn't beg. Clarity doesn't explain itself 20 times to be accepted. And when you spoke, or when you held your ground, there was clarity in it. No chaos, no desperation, no performance, just presence. And presence is powerful. They're trying to figure out what your next move will be. But here's the twist. There doesn't have to be a move. That's the part they don't get. You're not playing chess with them. You simply stopped pretending, and authenticity disrupts systems built on assumptions. Some of them are hoping this was temporary. A bad day, a mood swing, a one-time reaction. They're waiting for you to shrink back down, waiting for the old version to return so the balance they were comfortable with can be restored. But you feel it, don't you? Something inside you shifted permanently. There's a new alignment in your spine, a new steadiness in your voice, a new awareness in your eyes. Not aggression, not ego, just certainty. And certainty makes insecure people uncomfortable. Because when someone stands solid in who they are, it forces everyone else to examine who they've been pretending to be. That's the real fear. It's not that you might attack them. It's that you might outgrow them. It's not that you might expose them. It's that you might no longer tolerate what you used to. That's what keeps them slightly off balance around you now. You've raised the standard without announcing it. You've shifted the dynamic without demanding it. You've changed the energy without explaining it. And they feel it. Every room you walk into feels different now. Not louder, heavier, more intentional. You're not trying to intimidate anyone. You're just not shrinking anymore. And that alone rewrites power structures. They're still processing, still adjusting, still trying to decide whether to fear you, respect you, or align with you. But one thing is cleared: they can't put you back in the box. They can't reduce you to the old narrative. They can't unknow what they saw. And what they saw wasn't rage. It wasn't drama. It was depth. And depth is something shallow people struggle to swim in. Here's the part nobody talks about. The reveal wasn't the climax. It was the doorway. Because once the mask falls, something irreversible happens inside you. You breathe differently. You walk differently. You stop scanning the room for approval. You stop adjusting your tone to make others comfortable. You stop apologizing for existing at full volume, and that internal shift, that's the real transformation. They're still busy reacting, but you're awakening. For years, you carried yourself at half speed, maybe even less. You softened your sharpness, filtered your thoughts, lowered your standards. You told yourself it was maturity, peacekeeping, emotional intelligence, and in some ways it was, but it was also containment. You were containing your fire so it wouldn't intimidate insecure people. You were containing your insight so it wouldn't threaten fragile egos. You were containing your ambition so it wouldn't outgrow stagnant rooms. Now that containment is gone. And here's what they're slowly realizing. You weren't behind. You were held back by your own restraint. That's why this shift feels so powerful. Because you didn't become strong overnight. You revealed strength that was already there. You didn't suddenly grow depth. You stopped hiding it. And that's what makes this moment so unsettling for them. If that was you at 40%, what does 100% look like? If that was you holding back, what happens when you accelerate? That's the question lingering in the air around you now, not spoken, but felt. Some people will drift away, not dramatically, not with fireworks, just quietly. Because your growth exposes their stagnation. Your clarity highlights their confusion. Your confidence mirrors their self-doubt. And not everyone is ready to face that reflection. Let them go. Not with bitterness, not with ego, but with understanding. The ones who needed you small will search for someone else who fits that role. The ones who thrived on your silence will miss the version of you that never challenged them. The ones who felt powerful standing next to your restraint will struggle when you stand fully upright. But here's the beautiful part. When you stop shrinking, you create space for the right people, the ones who don't flinch at your intensity, the ones who respect your boundaries, the ones who don't need you to dim so they can shine. Because real recognizes real, and now you're broadcasting something different. Not performance, not people-pleasing, not survival mode, authenticity. And authenticity has a frequency. It attracts differently. Conversations will change. Connections will deepen. Opportunities will shift. Because when you move without disguise, you filter your environment naturally. You no longer tolerate subtle disrespect. You no longer entertain energy that drains you. You no longer negotiate your worth in rooms that benefit from your doubt. And that alone changes your trajectory. They're afraid because they sense momentum. Not loud momentum. Quiet, controlled, unstoppable momentum. You're not reacting anymore. You're responding. You're not proving anymore. You're positioning. You're not seeking validation. You're embodying certainty. That's evolution. And evolution makes people uncomfortable. Because when one person breaks free from a role, it challenges everyone still playing one. You dropping your mask forces others to feel the weight of theirs. And some will resent you for that. Not because you did anything wrong, but because your freedom highlights their fear. That's not your burden to carry. You are not responsible for maintaining illusions that make others feel powerful. You are not obligated to shrink so others can feel secure. You are not required to play a character just because they got used to it. The version of you that existed to be convenient. Gone. The version of you that absorbed tension to keep peace. Evolving. The version of you that tolerated subtle disrespect because it was easier. No longer available. Now you move with intention. You speak with weight. You listen with awareness. And when you choose silence now, it's not submission. It's sovereignty. That's the difference. Before, they thought they understood you. Now, they know they don't, and mystery combined with strength. That's powerful. But here's what matters most. This isn't about intimidating anyone. It's about alignment. It's about finally matching your outer presence with your inner truth. No more contradictions. No more internal battles between who you are and who you pretend to be. Just congruence. And congruence creates peace. A different kind of peace than before. Not the peace of avoiding conflict. The peace of not abandoning yourself. That's real freedom. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just solid. And from this point forward, everything shifts. Your standards rise. Your tolerance lowers. Your circle refines. Your energy protects itself. You stop chasing. You start attracting. You stop explaining. You start embodying. They might still whisper. They might still speculate. They might still try to decode you. Let them. You're not here to be decoded. You're here to be real. The secret isn't that you changed. The secret is that you stopped pretending. And now everyone knows. And yes, some of them are terrified. But you're finally free.